Hi folks, and welcome to Experts of Southern Nevada. I'm your host, Greg Adamour. We're here every Tuesday morning at 9:30 and 5 p.m. filming right here in Henderson, Nevada. And today we have an expert in real estate, Mr. Stephen Kitnick. Stephen, I've been trying to get you on the show for a few months. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming on in. Yeah, I appreciate it. I know you're an educator. You teach us. I've attended a lot of your classes and mentored a lot of us brokers. Keep us out of deep water a lot of the times. Tell us, when did you get into real estate, and how long have you been doing this?
Well, I first got into real estate in Sacramento in about 1985, 86 area, and working with some local companies up in Sacramento, and worked my way up from being an agent, a broker associate, as they call it there, and then had my own office. And then I came and moved to Las Vegas in July of '99. So I was in business there about 14, 15 years, and I've been in business here for 15.
Oh, so about 30 years under your belt, and
I know I don't look old enough.
No, you don't look old enough to be that, you know. I know you're too young to be in the business that long. You're looking good, and I know that you a real asset to the community here, and I know I've called upon you for advice a lot of times, and you've been remarkable. You're affiliated with Realty One now?
Yeah, I'm with the Realty One group. My office with them is out in Summerlin. We've got offices around town. In fact, I was just at the Henderson office before coming over here. So we've got different offices around town. And I actually did a class, a legal update class, with attorney William Devine, Devine Law Firm. He's somebody I do some paralegal work, some broker consulting with him in real estate matters, and we did a class out there today.
Oh, that's good.
Do a lot of classes in areas of agency, contracts, ethics, law and legislation, broker management, all the required courses that real estate licensees have to take. And I've done about 1,900 classes over the last 11 years. I'm primarily an educator now.
Yeah.
I sell some real estate occasionally. But I primarily educator, act as a consultant to brokers and attorneys, and I find that I'm able to leverage my experience that way.
And help people, yeah. You know, I went to a real estate exposition at the Riviera yesterday, and they had like about 1,000 realtors there, and a couple of Realty One agents were very helpful, and we had some conversations. Apparently they've expanded into Southern California because they have a dual license, I think, in Irvine, so I guess Realty One is on the move, and it's a growing company.
Yeah, I think they're spreading out all over the country. I don't follow that much myself. I actually have a broker's license in California, but it's under my own company name, Stephen Kitnick Real Estate. But so yeah, they're growing, and but I'm really just interested in our local marketplace. Even the classes I do, I don't speak on national level, but just about everybody in town knows who I am, and I think I have about a 98.6 approval rating.
And going up, on the right track. Yeah, that's.
Well, I've trained a lot of the agents in town. I mean, for example, with the distressed marketplace that we've been in for a number of years, I was one of the first educators who started training real estate agents on how to do short sales. So it started off where it wasn't for any continuing education to turning it into these continuing education courses that people have to take to renew their license. And then I co-authored with my colleague Jan O'Brien 2 national designation courses dealing with distressed properties. So we've been, I've been helping to lead the way, if you will, on that. And we still have a lot of short sales out there happening, and going to be happening. When we first started training people on this, we thought we'd be at it for maybe about 10 years, and maybe we're going to be approaching that. It could go longer. Unfortunately, there's a lot of agents who are handling short sales who don't know what they're doing.
A lot of people using attorneys or both.
Using attorneys, that's fine, but really, agents, if they're not adept at handling these type of transactions, like anything, you should just refer it out to somebody who does.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I know one of our colleagues you had mentioned, I met with him, Aaron. He's going to be a guest on the show. I think he closed over 200 short sales.
I think about double that. He's with
wow.
Resolution Realty. Yeah, I was over his office earlier today.
Yeah, great guy.
He does a lot of business with Cogburn Law offices.
Sure.
And in fact, he and I are going to be closing a transaction together next week. I don't sell that much real estate anymore, but occasionally, because I refer most of it out, I refer it out to people who I personally trained that I know can do the job. But Aaron and I are involved in a short sale transaction right now that's closing next week, where I referred him the buyer.
Oh, okay.
Because the banks don't really like, nor do some of us agents like to be in what's called in Nevada multiple representation, representing both sides of a transaction.
Okay.
So we're going to be wrapping up that deal very soon. Very sad story.
Yeah.
And there's still a lot of sad stories out there.
Sure.
This particular transaction is not the case of somebody just walking away from their house. Yeah, this is a case of an elderly woman whose husband died. And she spent a lot of money, had to sacrifice her business, that took a beating to take care of her husband. And then he finally died a couple of years ago. And now we're trying to, having to short sell the house. And it's very sad. Very sad. People losing their houses like that.
Sure, true hardship, and I've been involved with a few short sales where a represented a deceased party. They had FHA reverse mortgages, they passed away, and the estate had to settle the short sale. So each one presents a new challenge to it. But like you said, when you get to understand the people's needs in a situation like that, elderly person, now a widower, they need the help and guidance and some compassion, because I know as another realtor, one to another, you have a heart for helping people and educating people and giving back to the community, which makes us just more than people that facilitate transactions. We have an impact on people's lives, and I think it gives you a lot of satisfaction over and above getting paid to see that you've helped somebody. You've taken away a big debt off their back or a big burden off their shoulders.
Oh, absolutely. That's why a designation course that my colleague Jan O'Brien and I wrote a couple of years ago. It's called the Certified Foreclosure Alternative Consultant. And we spend about the first 45 minutes of that course talking about using Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, the late Dr. Kubler-Ross, who wrote a book years ago called On Death and Dying. And it was a book on how people would deal with the grief of losing someone, a terminally ill family member, and dealing. And so we're not the only ones who've used that her model, the 5 stages of grief. But we adapted it to the short sale and distressed marketplace. So we're not trying to train agents to become a psychiatrist, psychologist, but we need to try to understand where our clients are at in that cycle of anger, and depression, denial, bargaining, acceptance, and be a little bit more empathetic.
Sure.
Because it's not a happy time when somebody is going to lose their house to foreclosure, or they've lost all the equity in their house, or they got to short sale it. So you need to have a little bit more compassion with folks.
It takes an extra sensitivity today when we're dealing with people. And if someone wanted to, public maybe viewing, and they had questions about short sales or agency, and you mentioned dual agency, where sometimes you're representing the buyer and seller. Is the public, can they attend one of the Stephen Kitnick seminars, or is it just for real estate professionals, or is it open
occasionally? Occasionally we'll put on something for the public, but anytime any member of the public who might be watching today, and they want to contact me, they want to contact you and find out where my classes are at, they're welcome to attend.
What's is it stevekitnick.com? What is the seminars?
Well, the seminar business is Stephen. Well, how about this? Here's the easy one. How about just go to NevadaCE.com, NevadaCE.com.
Okay,
NevadaCE.com.
Yeah.
CE stands for continuing education, but
Right.
it's just NevadaCE.com, and just click on my schedule and see when it is, and or just call me.
Yeah.
You know, just have somebody call me, or if they're thinking about short selling their house, or they're upset about something,
Sure.
you know, give them a free consultation.
What's a good local number for, we can put on the text in the bottom of the show there? What's your, for somebody seeing the show and they want to give you a call, have a few questions, what's the best number to use?
702-326-8722.
Okay.
702-326-8722.
Okay.
And if they've got any questions, you know, no obligation, happy to help.
Great.
And you know, if it's something I can help them with, or perhaps a free consultation with the attorney that I work with primarily, William Devine Law Firm.
Yeah.
He'll entertain questions from homeowners who've got issues and problems, and without any obligation.
Yeah, today's homeowner faces so many more situations now, dilemmas with homeowners associations or construction defect. They've got a number of issues, maybe reconciling their mortgage with the banks. There's just a lot of different issues that they may have. Maybe they just want to call you and ask you how to pick out a good realtor, or what things to look for in terms of references in their neighborhoods.
I probably know about 75% of everybody in town.
That's probably about 10,000 of us.
Yeah.
Close to it, and you probably trained more than half of them. I've taken some of your classes. I know you're probably the best educator I've had. You're right up there in the very top.
Well, thanks. I keep people entertained.
Yeah, they're
I
fun.
try not to put them to sleep. I hope we're not putting your viewers to
No,
sleep.
no. I'm sure they get their money's worth, because it's you know, just being able to call you, as I have in many situations, got some invaluable advice. That's and that's what an experienced agent does, or even a smart newer agent. They get good counsel. They ask for advice. They ask for help. They need to know where to find it. You know.
And sometimes we've got to seek people who are experts outside of our field. I mean, I get calls all the time about things that are outside of my expertise. So if I don't know the answer, or if it's outside my expertise, I'll refer them to somebody.
Cool.
And so I kind of have my own little Better Business Bureau.
Yeah.
So I've got some attorneys I work with, CPAs, home inspectors,
Sure.
lenders, people who I know where they live.
Yeah.
So if they don't give good service, I can call them up and find out what's going on.
Okay, because you see, heard it right here. You got Steven's list. You know,
Yeah.
move over, Angie, because we got a new list coming out, and that works with me too. I've always found that I've worked with people and had good inspectors, you know, good title company reps, just people that can help with marketing, just all different phases of real estate that come into play. You know, appraisers. So to navigate through a transaction today is takes a little bit more expertise. It's like someone flying the plane. You have to make sure there's a nice gentle landing, and they know when to buckle up and make the ride smooth. And I think just people just want peace of mind, and with the experience you have and bring to the table, they can get a lot of that by contacting you, and getting hooked up with some professionals that have a good rapport, that have good track records, and care about people. Most importantly, they really care about the people. So that's a beautiful thing. Where do you see the market now? We're seeing still some short sales. Maybe the banks are going to get more of a, I guess they're going to unharness some of their legal restrictions. I'm not sure how that's happening. I haven't been following all the Supreme Court cases, but I know that for a while, the Assembly Bill 300 kind of restricted the, or was it 323, restricted
Well,
the bank's foreclosure.
321, we talked about that in the class today. Maybe that's what we're talking about. Senate Bill 321 that went into effect October 1 of last year. It's it's called the Homeowners Bill of Rights. However, it's really not for all homeowners, because even investors own those homes.
True.
So it only applies to owner occupants.
Right.
That's number one. It's only for, it went into effect October 1, so it only affects those homeowners who have a notice of default, or actually a judicial filing, which is different, after October 1. So if somebody's had a notice of default filed on their property after October 1, then that bill is likely to come into play. And then the bank is going to have to jump through a lot more hoops in order to finally foreclose on somebody. And that's why we saw a big spike in the end of September,
Right.
so that the banks could get in under the wire.
Sure.
And so I, off the top of my head, I think it was
A few thousand.
950 to 1,000 filings in September, off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
quite a
Don't
bit,
hold
yeah.
me to that.
Quite a few,
It just
yeah.
really spiked up.
Yeah, then it went down right after that October because then they had a whole lot of hurdles to clear.
Well, that's why it's important. See, for anybody who's listening or watching about if they're in trouble and they're not making their payments, you got to open up your mail. Don't put the head in the sand. Call somebody up and try to get some help.
Sure.
Because I can't help, you can't help. No one can help unless they're willing to talk about it, unless they're willing to face the reality and to see if there's some way to stay in the property, do a loan modification, maybe do a short sale, whatever it is that they want. But we can't help them if they don't open their mail, they don't call.
Right.
So
Great advice.
yeah.
Yeah, don't put your head in the sand because a lot of people, that's what they do. And or some people just vacate the house, say, hey, I'm out of here. And maybe they could have worked out a principal reduction or a loan modification or a short sale. Because a lot of times people can buy a home after a couple of years after a short sale, or veterans can wait 1 year and buy a home unless they change that.
They're always changing. I don't even know what it is myself.
They're
I
changing
mean,
it from 2 to 4 years now on Fannie Mae. So.
They could be changing it before the show is even over. So
That's right,
we
yeah.
don't know, okay?
That's right.
But really you should just try to call a professional up and seek some advice as to what the various different alternatives are, and then perhaps we can help. And so sometimes I get out of the ivory tower of the academia, and I'll put on my own surgical scrub. So, for example, I'm doing that one transaction I told you about with Aaron Alessi over at Resolution Realty, and I'm also doing another, I've got another listing of some folks because I was asked to do it. So most of the time I would refer it out, but sometimes I'll do it myself when it's a really difficult situation that might even require a little bit more of that empathy or that you were talking about, because it really chokes me up to have to deal with some of this stuff in some of these scenarios. You know, when somebody dies, when somebody's getting divorced, you know, somebody who thought they might have already retired and now they're finding themselves with nothing, no friends, no family, etc. And to be able to help folks, it's not, real estate is not all about, you know, the newlyweds getting married or having the first baby, you know, and all that good stuff. Sometimes it's some sad stuff, and I've never seen anything like this in the 29 years that I've been doing it, and I hope I never see it again. So, but sometimes I will do it, and sometimes I'll work with somebody. See, I can put on the other hat. See, I can't work on these short sales if I'm not the agent, or it's not with my own company with the same broker. But I can assist when I work through the law firm as a paralegal, and they retain the law firm to negotiate the short sale and process the paperwork. So sometimes if somebody says to me, hey, Steve, I'd really like for you to handle it, I can still be involved, and they have an agent of their choice, as long as, you know, we can all work together. Their agent is the general practitioner, and they're just referring the negotiations and processing out to the law firm, and we can help them in that way.
Yeah, it's a collaborative effect, and sometimes it takes several people working together to get the best results.
Yeah, as long as people don't get their egos in the way and realize, you know, we're all working together to in the best interest of the client. Yeah,
and communication skills is really important today. When you're dealing with these banks, it's always so much better to play nice in the sandbox. You can get mad, hot-headed, or arrogant. You know, sometimes these people on the other end of the phone call from the banks, maybe they're overwhelmed, overworked, underpaid. You know, there's a lot of frustration they might be dealing with. The last 4 or 5 people might have just chewed them out. So sometimes we can do a little bit better if we're diplomatic and approach them the right way and get the better service for the client. Sometimes these transactions can bring in an emotional element, and sometimes it's just really good to have a steady hand, experienced realtor like yourself that's able to diplomatically get the wheels turning instead of making a situation where it's a contested dilemma.
That's why I'm thinking about writing a course for real estate agent in anger management.
There you go.
So that perhaps they can improve their communication skills. Because it makes absolutely no sense to be browbeating the bank and the processors and people on that end. Where do you think your file ends up when you're yelling and screaming at somebody?
Exactly.
Okay?
Yeah.
So, I try to look at these things, whether it be short sales or any real estate transaction. We have a problem to solve, and let's try to keep our cool and try to communicate.
Sense of humor is a really good thing too. You said anger management. I thought of our boy Adam Sandler and Jack Nicholson. That was a hilarious movie. But a little sense of humor helps. But all kidding aside, good communication skills can make or break a transaction. One, you irritate the wrong person on the wrong day, and that file goes right to the bottom, and they usually tend to stay there for a while. So,
well, I'm sorry to say that in my experience, it's been more real estate agents that have blown up deals than buyers and sellers.
Yeah.
So when consumers out there are looking to hire a real estate agent to represent them, they might want to be asking questions more than just how many houses have you sold, but try to get a feel for their communication skills.
Exactly, and what banks have they worked with, and if they engage with an attorney, and it's good to see what kind of track record they have. A lot of agents avoid short sales because they are painstaking. They're probably 3 or 4 times the amount of work, and they take a long time. I don't know how long the one you have that you're closing with Aaron. I've got one.
Well, let me tell you
on
something.
For a long time.
Aaron and I might just be taking a picture together very soon.
Okay.
Because he told me today, and he's done something like over 400 of them, he thinks this may be the fastest, smoothest transaction that he's ever been involved in.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah. Do we have time to tell you just a little bit about it?
Yeah.
Let me tell you something.
Each one's an interesting case study, and you learn from every experience.
Here's an interesting case study, because when the appraisers or the folks who could be a real estate agent, maybe not an appraiser, maybe an agent who's hired by the bank to do an exterior only, or BPO as they call it, a broker price opinion.
Yeah.
When they only do a drive-by BPO, broker price opinion, or appraiser, how do they know what deferred maintenance is involved? How do they know, quote, what's wrong with the property?
Right.
Because the listing agent who's done their homework, they have a kind of an idea about what the property should go for, and what's interesting too is in a short sale, you're not trying to get the seller top dollar.
Right.
It's like a parallel universe. You know what you're trying to do? You're trying to sell it. The buyer wants to pay the least amount, and so you're trying to get the bank the least amount that they're willing to take.
Right.
But they could, but the BPO agents have no idea about the deferred maintenance. So, for example, the property that Aaron and I are involved in, the comparables would indicate that it should maybe sell in about the 170,000 range.
Okay.
But because of the deferred maintenance. Here's a strategy that I used. The homeowner, how many homeowners, whether it be a traditional sale or a distress sale, how many homeowners do you know paid for a home inspection before putting it on the market?
I think it's a good strategy.
She paid for a home inspection, and all the deferred maintenance that she knew about, and that a friend of theirs knew about, who was a general contractor, knew about. And then we had contractors come out to do estimates on the work, and then I was able to put into the multiple listing service that it had over $30,000 worth of repairs, that there was water damage, there was mold, evidence of mold, etc. So the property was listed at about, I had it at 139.95, and the buyer offered, we had a buyer offer 132.5, and the bank came back. I don't call it a counteroffer because the bank is not a party to the transaction. It's contingent on their approval, but it's a
right. So
all they said was they wanted 142,000.
Okay.
So the buyer knew how these things work. Not everybody knows. They figure, well, we got a deal for 132.5. I'm not paying any more. That's not a very well educated buyer. This buyer knew, because Aaron was working with him. This buyer knew that he was willing to come up in price.
Okay.
You know what he said? I'm willing, just between the parties, not the bank. I'm willing to pay up to 150.
Oh,
But we still went to bat for them because I had to negotiate with the bank.
sure.
And the bank said, we'll take 142.
Okay.
So that's $8,000 less than what the buyer was willing to pay.
Mm-hmm.
And we also, he got that house, and everybody's happy.
So win-win-win.
And also, the seller of the house was able to stay in the property for 90 days, find a place to live.
Give them time to move.
And also, no deficiency. In other words, the amount of money that she's
Right.
being
Most important.
forgiven with the bank, she doesn't have to bring anything to the table, doesn't have to sign a promissory note. She's 100% absolved, and her accountant says that she won't have to pay taxes on that fandom income, if you will,
Oh,
that
sure.
it's called.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The capital
Because
gains tax.
not
Well,
because
I
of the
mean,
Mortgage Debt
okay.
Relief Act, because it hasn't been extended,
Right.
but because of another exception called the insolvency exception.
Okay.
Outside of bankruptcy. So she's insolvent, she doesn't have to pay taxes, she's home free.
She gets to walk away in debt for debt.
Everybody is
yeah,
happy.
Yeah, it's a win-win-win, and that's the beautiful thing about working together with agents that you communicate well with, that you have a good rapport with, that take your classes, that have done their homework, because we can bring relief to our sellers, make the buyers and sellers happy. It does take a little more input sometimes, a little more expertise. I've got a couple that I'm going through that I might call your office and ask you for some insights on, because every situation is slightly different. And today we do have to be a little bit more of a Dr. Phil, or a little bit more of understanding and more sensitive. And I think our homeowners, buyers, and sellers can gain a lot by contacting yourself or myself and get in touch with some people that are sensitive and maybe specialize in their particular niche, whatever their problem is. So yeah, that's an interesting and a brilliant strategy. I've actually had evaluations and property inspections of property too that I know had significant problems, and it's a brilliant way to approach the bank so they know what's going on inside the house, what deferred maintenance is happening, and what the true intrinsic value is.
Well, we had a 3-ring binder for the BPO agent, so that when he came over to the house, we had the seller's real property disclosure form that the seller had filled out, where she had noted all the things that were wrong and explanations. We had the home inspection report in there, and we had the contractor's estimates in there to show that agent what may perhaps the true value, because if he had only driven by, he probably would have said 170.
Exactly.
And then we would have really been in a battle between, the 130,
Sure.
250, and could we have gotten them down to 150, which is what the buyer was willing to pay? I don't know. But because we did our homework ahead of time, we had made our case before we had to negotiate.
And
on
being
price.
prepared. I know you're very diligent when it comes to your business acumen. Your practice is diligence, and preparation is everything. And I think that's a great success story, and I'm sure there's a lot more coming like that. I think we're just about out of time, so I want to thank our viewers and Steve Kitnick for sharing with us. We're going to put your phone number on the bottom again, because I'm sure there's going to be some calls. People are going to need some help. And I really appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to having Aaron on as a guest. And
Well, thanks for having
show.
me.
My pleasure.
I hope your
Back soon.
viewers find some value in what we did here today.
Yeah, I think that they're really well, and it was an excellent show, and look forward to having you back on soon. So
Thanks a
thanks for
lot.
coming again.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you next Tuesday right here at 9:30 a.m., 5 p.m. also, right here on Experts of Southern Nevada. I'm host Greg Adamour, and thank you for sharing with us today. See you next week.